Welcome back. I'm still here. You're going to chop carrots with me. I thought we could have a little catch up because I've not been around for a couple of weeks, even though I'm supposed to be doing a weekly challenge and putting out weekly updates. Well, I think quite a few people know that we've had a tough couple of weeks here on the small holding. So if you're new here, my name's Tracy and this is our small holding adventure. We run a small holding in the northeast of England, and that's myself and my husband and our two lovely children. Well, lovely sometimes. And recently I haven't been putting videos out. I think this is 2 weeks now. Also, this will be the third week when you see this. This will be the third video that I missed. We are doing a weekly challenge, or we were doing a weekly challenge, and we're picking it back up again, which is what I'm here to tell you. And we had to pause it. So the weekly challenge is essentially a £25 shopping budget every week. And then on week 4, so every fourth week, we go down to £5. And that was the last bit of video that I took, was when we did our last £5 shop. And I didn't get around to posting it because my husband had an accident. Now, I can say that stood here smiling now because he's on the mend, as we say. So he is healing, his recovery is going very well. He fell off some scaffolding from a roof that he was working on. So the roof being our outdoor kitchen that we have been updating you guys on and lovingly talking about, and now is called my nemesis. So I think that's a good name for a bar and kitchen, isn't it? So nemesis. But then Stephen was saying that's something that you don't conquer, and he still wants to conquer this despite the setback. 2 seconds, I'm just going to stir the bacon. I've been in the office today, so I'm just doing a really quick tea. I'm doing soup. We don't normally have soup, but it's tortellini soup, so it feels more like a meal. I've done this one actually on here before, and I love it, and Stephen enjoys it, and it's just nice and quick and simple. So I'm just preparing that while I'm talking to you guys. But I'm adding some bacon in because it's a meat-free one that I do normally, and tonight I feel like a bit of bacon. So where was I? So on the Saturday, the 22nd of October, in my mind forever, Stephen went outside to start work on the outdoor kitchen. We'd been at work all week. Early morning, we'd had our breakfast, done our chores, and he went outside to get started on some roofing that needed to be done. He put the scaffolding up. It had been raining overnight. I didn't actually give that any thought, which I do normally. And he was climbing up on the scaffolding, did the work that he needed to do, and my dad had just arrived because he was going to give him a hand doing it. And Dad was just walking in the kitchen. Literally, I was stood where I am now talking to you guys. My dad walked in front of me, we were chatting, and then we just heard this almighty crash and the most harrowing scream. I'm not over dramatising that. And Stephen had fell from the scaffolding onto his back. Not only had he fell onto his back, he'd fallen onto a metal pole that punched into his spine, and essentially that's what's broke his back. So he has 2 fractures in his back, and I learned as part of this process that, at least here in the UK, fracture is the medical term for a break, and so it sounded even worse when I heard that he's broke his back after all of this. Anyway, he's got 2 fractures, L1 and L2, for those of you know what that is. I didn't, but I do now. And he was literally laid on the floor, screaming in pain. My dad ran out, I ran out after him, called an ambulance. The emergency services got here, dosed him up on medication. It took a long time to be able to get him moved. He's a big lad. And they were talking about sending a helicopter at one point, which was, looking back, goodness me, madness. Anyway, they managed, or we managed, because we had to lift him, 4 of us, to get him onto the stretcher, into the ambulance. Poor thing. Got him to hospital. I won't go into the details about the hospital. Those guys try and do the best that they can with what they've got. People were lovely, absolutely lovely. Processes, you know, there's work to be done there, bless them. But anyway, took care of him and gave him a CT scan, and that's when we found out that he's got a fracture on his back. Couldn't move. He was on morphine, he was on codeine, he was on like intravenous, everything. And eventually we got sent home. Now obviously He couldn't move out of bed, couldn't move his torso, could wiggle his toes and all of that carry on. When I say can't move, he couldn't get up and walk, he couldn't turn over in bed. So we had to then get him home, and of course they don't provide any services to help us do that. So that wasn't fun. It took him about 30 minutes just to walk down the little driveway that we've got at the front of the house, just to be able to get in the house. And when I say walk, goodness me, it was just, anyway, we're not going to get into all those details and relive everything. But needless to say, we started the recovery process. We got home like Saturday night, Sunday, whatever it was. I can't even remember what happened after that. And then after that, he started recovering Sunday, Monday, and we got more pain relief from our doctors who helped us out, or at least thought they were. And it turns out that the medication that they gave him, he reacted with. He's not very tolerant to it. And Tuesday we ended up calling an ambulance again. And some family true fare. So I've cooked the bacon. So that's just ready to be sprinkled onto the top. I haven't totally crisped it up because last time I did that, I turned it into like sawdust. So backing up just a little bit, we got sent home within the same 24-hour period that we went into the hospital. And they did the scan, and essentially because the break wasn't like a snap, because it's a fracture, this is how I think of it in my mind, they were saying that thankfully Stephen didn't need surgery, which was a huge relief, because we went through what felt like days, but was probably an hour or something, where they were going through the scan results and talking to us and saying, look, if it needs surgery, this and this, if not, then you can go home. Little did I think at the time how we were going to get home, but that was a whole different story. So no surgery needed. You know, the usual horror story that you tend to hear, but you don't hear of, you know, it's not people that, you know, if it was 2 millimeters to the right, he would have needed surgery, could have been paralysed, all of that. He wasn't. We're so lucky. We're so thankful that he is only as injured as he is. They did think because he'd landed on this pole that had gone into his back, but thankfully hadn't punctured his back. They were worried that it could have perforated or punctured his kidney. Again, thank goodness that was not the case. So at this point now, 2 weeks on, Stephen's thinking he's a little bit superhuman because, you know, it didn't happen, and there was a lot of, he's very lucky, conversations, etc, etc. So it's a bit of a light-hearted joke now, thankfully. At the time it obviously wasn't. So yes, we got sent home. Conditional management, I think, was the phrase that they call it these days. Bearing in mind Jack's got a broken ankle at the same time, so he's already at home with a pot on. Sunday went by, Monday went by. On Tuesday he had to go back in. I won't go into details because it's over with now, but essentially bad reaction to the medication, very bad reaction to the medication. Frightening times, really frightening times for us. And we got sent back out after they'd fixed him up, explained what the problem was. Stephen then said, there's no way on God's green earth that I'm going to be taking any of those medications again. They really frightened him what they did to him. So also he's obviously not very tolerant to them. So the medicines went a distance, and he has literally recovered since then. It was bed rest for the first week or a little bit longer than that. And then very, very slow starting to mobilise. He's only taking paracetamol and ibuprofen, which is what I was going to say just then that I didn't finish. And yeah, he's just been, you know, he couldn't even get out of bed, couldn't turn over in bed, couldn't brush his own teeth, all of that kind of thing. And over a period of a week, just started to regain being able to move slightly in bed. And then after that, once we were back from the second trip, you know, he's starting to very slowly get up and about. And now he was on crutches, he was in a wheelchair, and now he's got rid of the crutches. He's wandering around of his own accord, frightening the life out of me because I'll look and he's disappeared, and I'm thinking, goodness me, where have you gone? Come back, sit down, don't do anything. And he's just recovering now. He's not fit and able to drive or to go back to work or anything like that, but he's obviously raring to go back because that's just his mentality. He doesn't like sitting around. It doesn't sit well with him. But he does realise that he's got to recover. We all have, because it affected all of us. It was horrible. I'm literally about to, what prompted me to start this video, because I didn't really know how to get back into it again, because I want to acknowledge what's happened, and you guys know I can talk for England, so sorry about that. But I'll show you just now I came across the bag that when we came back from the hospital the first time, they gave us all our belongings back in, and I just put that out of the way, and in a spare room I haven't been back in since. Now let me show you what was in that bag. I just need to finish the soup. So I've got carrots, onions, stock cubes, a litre of water, and I'm putting a tin of tomatoes in here now. I just need to get that cooking away while I finish. So that's fine, that's on now. In fact, I need to rinse that out. I'll get to that. So this is the reality, and this reminded me. This is a pair of jeans, the jeans that Stephen had on that day. They had to get cut. So they've been completely cut off. All of his clothes had to be cut off. They couldn't get to his arm to put the, is it called a cannula in? So that's that gone. But on top of that, he had his trusty old farm coat on. And in order to be able to get to him, everything just had to get cut off. And to be quite honest, at the time, I was just in survival mode of taking care of my family and making sure that he had everything that he needed to be able to get through the next few days. And it's only really when I've seen those clothes again and realised what we've gone through, what he's gone through, that it kind of hits home. And I thought, you know, it's time to move on, to get this video done and to get going again, because I honestly don't know where the last couple of weeks has gone. In one way, it's flown by because I just can't remember it, and in another way, it just took forever for certain things. And it's been humbling to see how many people have cared. The night that we came home, our lovely neighbour turned up with a bed for the snug, so we couldn't, obviously Stephen couldn't get upstairs, couldn't even get in the house. And he came in, saw what we were going through and said, I've got the perfect solution. 2 minutes later, came back with a bed. We got a mattress from upstairs, from our spare bed, and we made a room for Stephen to be comfortable in. Our adult social services here in England helped us no end, and a couple of days later we had everything that we could have needed for taking care of somebody in that position. But in between that happening and the couple of days since we arrived home, the amount of people outpouring love, turning up with all kinds of varieties of donuts, magazines, flowers, computer games, anything and everything that they could do to help Stephen get through this, to take his mind off being stuck in bed and not being able to move, and just spending time with him was just amazing to see, and brings me to tears every time I think about it. So thank you to everybody that saw on Instagram, or when I put a comment here on YouTube. I never know how far the community tab on YouTube reaches, but you guys saw that, and you saw on Facebook some people as well. So when I post something on Instagram, it copies across to Facebook. So thank you for being there, and thank you for supporting us, and thank you for those of you that realised that we still need to keep our views going to help keep the channel alive, because at the end of the day, we do this for enjoyment. We get a tiny bit of money through it now that we're monetised, and we want to build a huge community of people that are all into exactly the same and things that we enjoy, whether it's preserving, cooking, growing, animals, countryside, nature, lifestyle, kitchens, you know, everything that we do here on the Small Holding. And thank you for those of you that realised that, you know, watching our videos while we weren't able to keep posting would really help keep our channel going. So I really appreciate that from myself as well as from Stephen. So in terms of the challenge, that got put on pause. And I think one of the things that I've learned from this is that always have your mobile phone charged, because when you need it, and you need it to be charged, if it's not, it's a pain in the bottom. So that is really one thing. Always have, you know, fuel in your car is another thing. Even though we got took in by an ambulance, it reminded me of a time that I needed my car desperately for something, and we didn't have enough fuel in it. And back in the day when I didn't keep the car topped up and things like that. So silly little learnings, but things that can really help in an emergency situation. You know, having somebody that we can call on to help us out, turning the snug room into a bedroom for Stephen. People bringing things round, having a community that you can rely on and you can call upon in times like that. Practical things I've learned, and we already knew, but we've put them into practice, and I really learned from that. From a food perspective, you know, it's about feeding healthy, nutritious food to get better. I did that as much as I could. Equally, we've also eaten and been given things that, you know, aren't as healthy and nutritious, but we thoroughly enjoyed them, and are really grateful for that as well. But learning wise, I absolutely need to restock my shelves now in the pantry, because we were already running low. And if you guys remember and you've been here before, I was talking about doing a canning month in November, which I'm still going to get going with, just a little bit later than planned, because my shelves were starting to run low. So we finished off the jars of food that we've got on the shelves during this time. And also I didn't go to Aldi for my shop, I got a Tesco delivery. So I used to do that back in the day, and then obviously, you know, it's quite expensive, and I find Tesco a little bit more expensive, especially when you start adding the delivery and things like that on. And I just chose to turn to Aldi because it was easy for me and I could go every week and that wasn't a problem. However, I couldn't leave the house because I was 24/7 care for Stephen, and even though people offered to stay with him, I just didn't want to. So I got Tesco delivery. I've had 3. Not cheap, I've blown the budget in that respect, and that's fine, because it's, you know, that's why another little bit of learning from this is for me, to try and keep some money aside for those emergency situations, you know, whether it's a couple of £100 stashed underneath your mattress like my nanny used to do, or whether it's, you know, some money set aside that you just can't spend easily in your bank, something like that, that you can call upon, that's over and above what you would normally spend. When maybe you're not thinking totally straight and, you know, you just need to get certain things done. And I was just, you know, did that, threw a Tesco order in, got lots of things that I thought were healthy, nutritious food that would make him better, because that made me feel better if I could provide something for him to help him get better. And that's kind of, you know, that's just how it goes for me. So yeah, so learning, a few bits of learning from this, which I'm always looking for, you know, what can you take from a situation? And we've been so lucky that things could have been so much worse and they weren't. So we need to now learn from this and make sure that if, God forbid, anything ever happened again, that was me touching wood, by the way, then, you know, we'll be as prepared for it, and or better, even better prepared than we were this time. So that's my lecture to myself. And we've also been very kind to ourselves, and we haven't been, you know, keeping too much of a close eye on what we've been spending, or we've just been going day to day, taking care of ourselves and doing what we needed to do. Now, today was my first day back in the office, so Stephen was at home on his own for some of the day, because he can be now, but he did have visitors as well to keep an eye on him and get him anything that he needed. So tonight I'm hoping that I'm going to get starting with some canning. I'm not going to go through all the details on this video because it'll end up being too long, because I'm quite aware for how long I can waffle on. But I'm going to start with a sausage, kale and potato soup. So I'm going to try and get 14 pints of those on the shelf. If you don't know what canning is, I have done a separate video on when I first got my pressure canner, and I will be doing the series that I've talked about, and I will do like an introduction to pressure canning as well. But essentially it's taking foods that you can make shelf stable through the process of pressure canning and getting them on the pantry shelves. It can't just be any old food. There is the rules and regulations around it and things like that as well. You might know it here in the UK as bottling, and a different form is water bathing, but that's not done via pressure canning. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all that now. So yeah, that's where we're at. It is Monday, first day back, as I say. Trying to find a little bit of more normality. I won't be going to to Aldi tomorrow, which I would normally go on a Tuesday. I haven't meal planned this week either, but I've got some easy things that I can grab, such as I got one of the things was the tortellini, things like that, nice and easy. I'm at home working from home tomorrow, so I'll be able to get a meal prepared at lunchtime, get it in the slow cooker, well, in the bottom of the Aga for tea, and have a think about what else we're going to have this week. So I'm starting to get back into the practicalities of things and thinking outside survival, because I've been in survival mode for a good couple of weeks. I might show you, depending on how it goes with the canning tonight, I might close out with what it looks like on the shelf. I've got some other interesting things that I want to show you, but I'm going to get to that in a different video that's not kind of the drama that we've had. Let's just get back to a bit of normality. So in fact, I'm probably just going to close this out and not do that tonight. So that's what's been happening. That's what the last couple of weeks has seen for us. Soup's nearly done, took a little break. So I think I am just going to close this out. I'm not sure what I'm going to get done tonight or not. You can hear the family in the background. We're all in now. We're talking about our day. We're talking about what's happened. and we're just going to enjoy some family time. But I really wanted to touch base with you guys again to let you know what's been happening and to say thank you. I'm okay to talk about it now, kind of. Take care. I'll be back very soon.